You slept 8 hours last night, maybe even 9. You didn't go to the gym. You didn't run errands. You didn't do anything that should have drained you. You sat on the couch. You scrolled your phone. You watched something you've already seen. Maybe you took a nap in the middle of the afternoon because your body felt heavy for no reason. And now it's 7 p.m. and you're exhausted. Not sleepy. Exhausted. The kind of tired that sits behind your eyes and in your shoulders and makes even the idea of cooking dinner feel like climbing a mountain. And the worst part isn't the tiredness, it's the guilt. Because you did nothing all day. You have no right to be this tired. You didn't earn it. At least that's what the voice in your head says. That voice is wrong. And the reason it's wrong is because your brain has been working harder today than you realize. You just can't see the work because none of it left a mark on the physical world. But your nervous system has the receipts. Let's start with what's actually draining you when you think you're doing nothing. Neuroscientists at Washington University discovered that your brain consumes roughly 20% of your body's total energy. 20%. That's more than any other organ, more than your muscles during a walk, more than your heart pumping blood all day. And here's what most people don't understand. Your brain doesn't consume less energy when you're resting. In many cases, it consumes more. When you're lying on the couch doing nothing, a network called the default mode network activates. This is the system that handles self-reflection, future planning, rumination, social simulation, and memory processing. In other words, the moment you stop doing things in the outside world, your brain starts doing things in the inside world. It replays conversations. It worries about tomorrow. It rewrites things you said last week. It simulates arguments that haven't happened yet. It plans meals you won't cook. It calculates bills you haven't paid. And every single one of those invisible processes costs glucose, costs oxygen, costs energy. You didn't do nothing today. Your brain ran a full shift. You just didn't get a paycheck for it. Now here's the first hidden drain that nobody talks about. Decision fatigue. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that the average adult makes approximately 35,000 decisions per day. Most of them are invisible. What to wear, what to eat, whether to respond to that text now or later, whether to open Instagram, whether to close Instagram, whether to get up or stay seated, whether that noise outside matters. Each decision individually costs almost nothing, but collectively they create what psychologists call decision fatigue. And here's what makes this dangerous. Decision fatigue doesn't feel like fatigue. It doesn't feel like you ran a marathon. It feels like apathy. It feels like you don't care anymore. Like nothing sounds good. Like you can't choose what to eat because choosing feels like lifting a weight. That's not laziness. That's a prefrontal cortex that has been quietly spending its budget all day on micro decisions and has nothing left for the big ones. I call this the invisible load. The invisible load is the accumulated cognitive cost of every unfinished task, unmade decision, unanswered message, and unresolved thought that your brain is carrying at any given moment. And it weighs nothing physically, but neurologically it weighs everything. The second hidden drain is one you've been paying all day without realizing it: emotional background processing. Have you ever had a fight with someone in the morning and then felt drained for the entire rest of the day, even though the fight lasted 5 minutes? That's because your brain didn't stop processing the fight when the conversation ended. It continued running the emotional subroutine in the background, analyzing what they said, generating responses you didn't deliver, calculating whether the relationship is damaged, predicting what happens next. And this doesn't just happen with fights. It happens with any unresolved emotional event. A passive-aggressive text from a coworker, a weird look from a friend, a news headline that made your stomach drop, a memory that surfaced for no reason while you were in the shower. Each of these opens a background process in your brain. And unlike a computer, your brain doesn't have a task manager where you can see what's running. You just feel the drain. You feel heavy and slow and tired, and you look at your day and think, I did nothing. But your brain did everything. It just did it where you couldn't see. The third drain is the one that's probably running right now: your phone. We covered this in depth before, but it connects directly here. Your phone keeps your nervous system in a state of tonic alertness, low-grade, permanent readiness. Every notification is a micro-interruption. Every scroll session is a cortisol trigger. Every headline is an unresolved threat signal. And on a day where you did nothing, your phone probably did everything. You checked it 60, 70, maybe 100 times. Each check pulled your brain out of rest and into scan mode. Each scan cost energy. And each return to rest was incomplete, because another notification arrived before your nervous system could fully stand down. So you spent the entire day in a state that looked like rest, but felt like running. Your body was on the couch, your brain was on a treadmill, and by 7 p.m. the gap between what you did and how you feel makes no sense, unless you understand that rest is not the absence of movement. Rest is the absence of cognitive load. And you had the movement off, but the cognitive load at maximum the entire day. Now the fourth drain is the cruelest one, the guilt itself. When you feel tired after doing nothing, your brain immediately runs a calculation. I'm tired, but I didn't do anything. Therefore, I don't deserve to be tired. Therefore, something is wrong with me. That calculation is the invisible load's most expensive tax, because now you're not just tired. You're tired and ashamed of being tired. And shame is one of the most energy-intensive emotions the brain can process. A study at the University of British Columbia found that shame activates the same neural circuits as physical pain. It literally hurts to feel guilty about resting. So the guilt you feel about doing nothing is actually the thing making the tiredness worse. You're paying a tax on the tax. Double drained. First by the invisible cognitive load, and second by the shame of not understanding why you're loaded. Does that cycle sound familiar? Have you ever beaten yourself up for being tired on a day where you did nothing and then felt even more tired afterwards? That's the guilt loop, and it runs on autopilot unless you see it for what it is. Here's the part that connects all of this. The people who feel this the most are not the lazy ones. They're the ones carrying the most invisible weight. If you're the type of person who replays conversations, if you're the one who feels other people's moods, if you're the one whose brain won't shut off at night, if you're the one who cares too much and carries too much and processes everything at full depth, you are never going to have a restful nothing day because your brain doesn't know how to do nothing. Your default mode network runs hotter than most people's. Your emotional processing runs deeper. Your threat detection runs longer. A nothing day for most people is a recovery day. A nothing day for you is your brain finally getting uninterrupted time to process every single thing it's been holding all week. And that processing is exhausting. Not because you're weak, because you're carrying a heavier load than people who think less and feel less. The invisible load was never invisible to your body, only to the people who told you to stop being dramatic about it. So what do you actually do about this? Here are 3 things that directly reduce the invisible load. And they work because they target the specific drains we just discussed. The first is what I call the decision dump. Take 5 minutes in the morning and write down every decision that's floating in your head. Not a to-do list, a decision list. What to eat for dinner, whether to reply to that email, whether to call the dentist, whether to accept that invitation. Get them out of your brain and onto paper, because an unwritten decision lives in working memory rent-free. It takes up space all day. A written decision becomes an item you can act on or ignore, but it stops draining your processor. Have you ever written something down and immediately felt lighter? That's your working memory being released from holding it. The second is the closing ritual. At the end of each day, spend 5 minutes closing the open loops. Reply to the text you've been avoiding. Put the dishes away. Set out tomorrow's clothes. Write 1 sentence about how today went. What you're doing is telling your default mode network that the day is complete. There's nothing left to process tonight. Without this signal, your brain will spend the entire night running background tasks on unfinished business from the day, and you'll wake up tired again tomorrow. The third is the one you'll resist the most, but it's the most powerful. 1 hour of genuine rest. Not phone rest, not Netflix rest, not scrolling rest. Actual neurological rest. Phone in another room. No screens, no input, just you, and silence for 30 to 60 minutes. Read a physical book, sit outside, walk without headphones, lie down and stare at the ceiling with nothing playing. This is the only state where your parasympathetic nervous system can fully activate. This is the only state where your brain can actually recover instead of just switching between different types of stimulation. And most people haven't experienced true neurological rest in months, maybe years. Does that include you? Try it once. Just once. And notice how different the tiredness feels afterwards. Not the exhaustion of an overworked brain. The tiredness of a brain that finally had permission to power down. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are not failing at rest. You are a deeply processing, constantly calculating, emotionally attuned human being whose brain treats a nothing day like a 12-hour shift at a factory nobody else can see. The invisible load is real. It is heavy. And it is finally time you stopped apologizing for feeling its weight. Give yourself the same compassion you'd give a friend who worked all day and came home exhausted, because that friend is you, every single day, even the days where it looks like you did nothing at all. Now there's one specific habit that people who carry the invisible load develop that quietly sabotages every attempt they make to actually rest. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's what we're getting into next.